In this module, we are going to see the basic structure of HTML and some of the HTML tags. So in the earlier module, we have seen that so p tag, uh, which means paragraph, h1, h2, h3, these are headings. Div is a generic container division, and there were something called block tags, right, or block elements. Now there were something called inline elements, which were, let's say, something like link or strong tag, italics, span, these things. So I believe most of the things we explained at that point of time, but let's say I will go in slightly more detail about the a tag, link tag. Apart from that, pretty much everything is just like paragraph, division, and these are like simply headings, and span is just an inline element, so nothing much to discuss here. So these are very, very basic things, right? I'll discuss link in detail in a bit. Okay, first we have to understand which I left earlier, the point that what is the difference between inline elements and block elements, right? So firstly, let's try to cover that. A block, and many times in passing I told that block is something that like, so basically block elements are consists of block tag. So you can say that if I say that div is block tag, then I can say that the element div is block element, right? So in that sense, the block tag, that thing will take the whole line. In fact, here it is incorrectly written. So the correct thing should have been a block element takes the whole row or line, and an inline element takes just does not start a new line. It just renders itself in the current line, right? By that we mean that, let's say, we have, so for simplicity, let's have two spans, right? And in that, say, let's say you write hello 1 and let's say hello 2. Inside that, let's have another span, and just for simplicity give a line break here. Inside this we are having a span for the time being, and here let's say 1 2 3 we have written, right? Now let's give a class name here, my test. Okay, that's fine. Now we can see that, let's say, if we are giving color blue, then you can see that this thing has become blue, right? For clarity, let's give some background color. So background color, let's say pink. So we can see that this thing is what we are talking about. Now why I have created two more span elements, just to clarify that this 1 to 3 is between two other inline elements. We know that span is inline. So hello 1 and hello 2 both are inline, and this thing is also an inline element, which is inside these two other inline elements, and there is no new line spawning, which means that definitely this span is also inline. In contrast, let's say it would have been div, this middle span would have been div, then it would be a block. So now you see that hello 1, hello 2, this 1 to 3 has taken its own line, and that's why it is called block. So that is what I was meaning, that when I say that a block tag takes the whole line, but the inline does not start a new line. However, we can customize this behavior. Yeah, so obviously these things, all these things we can customize using the CSS display property. So what CSS display property does, that it takes values like inline block. I will explain all these, but the point is that if, let's say, a div, so for example here we have a div, in this div, this class, let's say if I set, so right now it is block. If I set something like display inline, then see what is happening. It has become inline. You see, even if it is a div, it is being rendered as inline. In contrast, let's say comment it back, then it is obviously a div, then it is block, and change it to span. Now I know that I have changed it to span, so it will be a inline. But now I can, rather than doing inline, I can make this block. You understand? So by default right now this thing is span is inline. You can see inline. When I do this display block in that span, then what is happening? That has become block. So we can change inline to block or block to inline. Now there is a third property value called inline block. What does that mean? Inline block is a special, inline block is basically inline only, but it has a special property that we can give height and width to this thing. So let me explain. So let's say when we are when we are having a div, let's say when we are having a div and we are making it, let's say display inline. This is inline. Now if you see that inline, instead of inline, if I do inline block, then looks like nothing changes. But actually what is happening, that now since I have done it inline block, then now I have the flexibility to set height and width on this thing. You understand? Something which is purely inline, you cannot set height and width on that, because height and width is only related to block elements, right? But if something is block, I convert it to inline. Now it is visible as inline. But again, if it is inline block, then I can again set its width and height. So for example, let's say width, let's say 150 pixel. Then you can see that we are able, even if this is inline, we are able to set this width to 150, and that is precisely because of this inline block thing. If it would have been simple inline, then you see that nothing happens. In fact, if you set height also, let's say, nothing will happen. It is purely inline. However, if I convert it back to inline block, then our height and width both will be applied. You can see height and width are both applied, and now you can see that still this whole thing is taking one line together. So even if these are individually inline, this is inline block, but still sort of the flow is like inline only, and this whole thing is taking separate line. And why is it taking separate line? Not because any of these are block. No, all these are inline. But why new line? Because the previous thing was block. So when this div is block, so it definitely spawned a new line, and then anything which comes after that can only come in the next line, and that's why all these three things are definitely inline. And again we have a BR tag here, line break, and that's why this thing is coming in new line. So the idea is that in this way we can customize the behavior of inline and block elements. Next, many times we have seen by now that something called self-closing tags. Self-closing tags are those tags which don't have a body content, and we have seen some examples. So right now, just now we saw BR tag, right? This is a self-closing tag, and I also mentioned that all self-closing tags in HTML5 you can write like this also, or you can end it by / also. Okay, both are valid. You can see this is also same. So BR tag, and there is something called HR tag, which is called horizontal rule. So it just gives a divider. So it is something like, let's say I want to give a, rather than like simple line break, I am giving horizontal rule, then it will draw a line actually. You see, it draws a divider sort of line. So just sometimes you might need something like this. So yeah, horizontal rule is just that divider. And img and input, these two tags we will be explaining in detail after some time in this set of videos only. Okay, just now I mentioned that in HTML5 it is valid to end it with slash forward slash closing bracket also, which means that this and this both are equivalent in HTML5. In fact, you should try to write this like this. So BR tag, HR tag, these are like normal, right? But if you are writing a proper tag like IMG or input, you try to write like this, because later we will see that there is something called JSX in React. In that side, something like this is not valid. So you have to write like this only. So if you are in the practice of always writing this, then never any issues will come, which means that there also some by mistake we will not write something wrong. Anyways, let's see some more HTML tags. We saw line break and horizontal rule. This we already just now saw. Let's see from below this delete text and insert text. So del, that is a tag. If you apply this tag on some text, then that crossed text sort of thing. So you understand that if I do something like del, then the behavior is like the text is crossed. Okay, and you can see that whatever is there, it is crossed. If you, let's say you have one space here and one space here, and then you refresh, then you see that that thing is not coming. However, if I want that type of space, then I can do NBSP. We'll just discuss that non-breakable space, right? And then now you can see that space has come, which means that if you keep on giving like too many spaces, then something like this behavior. The point was simple that obviously del will cross the text, but it will only cross whatever is the actual text, right? Whatever is the actual text. So so that is fine. But next thing is, what is insert? So let's say this hello 1 is there, and now let's say insert hello 2 is there. Let's try. You see some sort of a underline. So this is not a link, this is simply underlining some effect is there, and it is just saying that okay, this thing is crossed and this thing is replaced by this. So if you are writing something like something, and all these are inline elements, right? Which means that the uh, price of something is, and you can say that let's say rupees 200, and then you can put this 200 in del, right? And then after that you can write, let's say 150, and that 150 you can write in insert. So you understand that what can be the normal use case. Okay, so basically the path of something is 200, and 200 you crossed, and this you inserted. Whatever you insert, the to emphasize the browser, to emphasize that this thing is like an inserted, they have this sort of styling underlining. Okay, okay, this thing is done. Now underline and this inline quotation. Now this underline will give a similar behavior like this. but that is a separate thing. Underline is like, you understand na? Here it is trying to insert and this effect is trying to say that insertion has happened. But when I'm underlining something, then I'm saying that, let's say hello world, and I'm underlining it in u tag. So you see that this is also underlined. But now you understand that, yeah, okay, you can see that like B and strong both were bold, I and emphasis both were italics. So here you can understand that in that sense U is underlined like style wise, and INS insert is like underline in that sense. But both will look like same. Okay. Next is inline quotation. So this is like simple. This is like whenever anything is there, and if you put it in Q, then that will be in double quotes. Okay, pretty simple. Uh, okay, now let's come back to this. Let's come back to this pre-formatted text, uh, pre tag, and this thing called display programming code. So basically code and pre both are some sort of monospaced fonts. They will show. Let me show you. So let's say I have a code, okay, and in that I write something. Then you see that it is this behavior and this thing. Let's have a line break, that is fine. But if you see, then the behavior is simply this is like sort of a monospaced sort of like code. So if you write a proper some code here, then this will be looking like that only. Code, you understand, a source code, programming code. So when let's say your normal English you are writing, or some word, then you are writing like this. But let's say some code syntax you are writing, then you write something and then you write it in code tag, then it will be looking like code. Okay, so let's say whatever, this line, whatever, and it will come out. So now that is the difference I was saying. So let's say the same thing, if I put it in pre tag, what is the difference? You see, let's say something like this is there. So pre tag will also render it like this, but now see the difference. Now you see the difference that actually this thing is looking like not wrapped. So you see this thing is going too long. Okay, so the difference is that here whatever spacing you provide, that is preserved. That is the first difference. Here it is not preserved. So let's say I add 3 more spaces after SIT here, and here also I add 3 more spaces after SIT. If I refresh, then we will see that that's number of spaces, that many number of spaces has come here, but here that space has not come. So this is behaving like normal HTML. Like outside also, if you, let's say, in this hello world you put like too many spaces, HTML will concat the whole thing to one space, right? So similar to that, that is happening here also. Okay. Uh, Now let's try one thing. Let's have a third attempt where we'll try to have pre, but we'll try to have pre inside code, and let's see if there is any difference. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah. So basically, as you can see that there's not any difference. Uh, but the main thing is that if you are trying to have some this sort of a wrapping behavior where you don't want this whole or long thing, and let's try the other way around also. What we should try this also. We should try that. Let's say inside pre code is there. Again, this behavior will be like code only. Why? Because we know that. Uh, yeah. So you can see that as as the padding is changing, the line breaking is also changing. So let's say here we are. So let's say here we are adding new lines, okay, and let's say here we are adding new lines, okay. Then you can see that these lines will be these lines are being applied in both cases. Why? Because anyways, anything which is in pre, that new spaces and new lines there will be, they will be applied, right? Now here, even if I am applying that inside code, but what is happening that since this is also inside pre, so this behavior of like preserving those things will apply, or any new lines, those things will apply to this also. So it's in at the end it is just like that. And never in a reality, like it will be like pretty simple. In reality it will never be like this much complicated. You will have a plain simple code where you are writing simple, let a is equal to 5 plus 3 plus x or something, understand now. Normal code will be there, and then that will be visible like source code, right? And additional styling as and when you will need, you can do that. So this should be fine. Let's see a few more things. So whatever we were trying to do till now, what is happening is that let's get rid of it, not needed anymore. Okay, so you see that when I highlight here, then I don't see any title as such for the page or something, right? So what we can do is that we can write a title here inside head. So inside head we can write something like title, and then we can give, let's say, home page or something. Then we will see that now there is a proper home page title. So whatever the title comes in here, that thing is actually can be given like this. So now you understand. Okay. Apart from that, we have this thing called char set UTF-8. So what happens that in old days, nowadays browsers have become slightly smarter. So what they are doing is that so in char set UTF-8, if you write this, then only they used to understand something like this emoji or something. Why? Because these are not ASCII characters, these are something called Unicode characters, and until unless you give the char set UTF-8, browsers were not understanding that what is this this sort of characters are what they will not be able to understand. However, now you see that even if you remove this, in fact we were not having that line, but then also everything was working fine, because the modern browsers like take Unicode also in correct consideration, so that will work fine. Okay. Let's see, there are a few more meta tags. So these meta tags, you understand, like purpose of title is providing title, that we know. In fact, purpose of style is providing styles. Purpose of link is to link new style sheets or something to the document. There is also another tag called script tag, that when we will learn JavaScript, then we will use that tag to write to attach JavaScript files to the this file. So for example, right, we are attaching this external style sheets using link href. Similarly, using script src, we will attach some external files. But that example I have not given. But that also generally you can write in head. Uh, right now we are focusing on these meta tags. So these meta tags are more mostly used in search engines or something. So let's say some search engine comes and it is trying to make sense of the web page, that what this page is all about. Then isn't it better that we are giving some hint to the crawler, web crawler, let's say Google, Google is trying to crawl our website, then whatever the bot of Google is coming to scan our website, if we give some hints to that crawler, then it will be good, right? So in that sense, we can write something like this, that okay, this let's say our name is description, right? And the description, and then there is something called content, and here you can write that this is let's say a simple homepage description is there, like simple, right? Let's say you can again say, and this point, the point of this exercise is saying that there are multiple types of names. So let's say keywords. So you understand, Google will see that okay, these are important keywords. So let's say HTML, CSS, and this is a demo page. So now we are saying about our page that these are important keywords. This is the summary of my content of my page, something like that. So in this way, we can say that what is actually the behavior of our page, and that which we are trying to say to external parties, right? Okay, that is fine. There is there are two more things. Let me explain. So first thing is this thing called viewport. Okay, so let me show you one thing first. So there is something called meta, and instead of name is equal to keywords or something, there is something called viewport, and in content we are having this thing. So width is equal to device width. So width is equal to device width, and then initial scale 1.0. So what is happening? Initial scale is equal to 1.0. So you see what is happening, that when we are saying that a name is equal to viewport, means which means that this meta information is about viewport, and the value, the content which we are trying to establish for this information is width is equal to device width, and initial scale is equal to 1.0. So we will see that how it behaves. So I will show you an example. So let's say I comment this, okay, and I open this page. So whatever I have written, that I have commented, and I open in mobile mode. Now you see this is looking very bad. It's looking very bad. In fact, if you see some old websites in mobile, then it will be like this only. Like they are not properly like there is a term for that which is called responsive websites, which means that the websites should adapt to the different device sizes, which means that if you are opening it on phone, then it should be legible with respect to that phone also. It should not be like this much tiny. Now you see that it is fine. If I use something like this and then I open this, then you see it is more legible, right? So actually you don't need to like understand that much. You can simply copy paste this and that thing will work. I just wanted to tell you that how this works. What it is saying, that the width of viewport, you set it to device width. So if my device width is this much, then my viewport should be uh, completely like that much only, depending on the, which means that I'm not saying that my viewport width, my mobile is only, let's say, 300 or 400 pixel wide, then I'm not saying that my viewport is like 1000 pixel wide, like big screen, like otherwise it will look very small, right? And that's why if my mobile device width is let's say 350 pixel, then if I make my viewport width also that much only, then it will be slightly legible. And second effect will be that this initial scale 1.0, it does some zooming behavior. Okay, so I don't know, let's see, let's try 2.0. Yeah, so you can see that this thing is zoomed more. So basically 1.0 is like the default behavior, which like whatever we expect, that behavior, normal behavior will come from 1.0. So like this is like you will see at many places like ditto this line you will, they will suggest you to use, but I just wanted to explain you that how that works. Okay, so at the load, whatever is the initial scale, that is the zoom behavior, and that will be established while you are loading the page. This we understood. One another last thing I wanted to mention in the meta tag is that there is something called HTTP HTTP equivalent, I think it is short for that. So when we say this value refresh as its value, and then we give content is equal to some number, then actually what it means is that my page is going to refresh again and again, keep refreshing after this many seconds. Understand? So if I write, let's say meta and name, no, not name, HTTP, right? This thing has to, value has to be refresh, and then content has to be, let's say 3 seconds. Then you will see that this page is going to refresh automatically, keep on refreshing after every 3 seconds. So you can see here. So you pay attention here. After every 3 seconds, that thing is refreshing, right? And if I change that to, let's say, 1 second, then it will refresh. See, every second it is refreshing. Understand? So sometimes let's say you don't have like that API support or just some minor thing you have to do, then you can simply put, let's say, 5 seconds or 7 seconds or 6 seconds, that after 6 seconds just try something has happened or not, and that will be enough. You don't need to do much JavaScript, something simple HTML is taking care of these small things, right? So if you don't have sophisticated needs, so for normal things, these also might be helpful at some places. Okay, so definitely I don't want to keep on refreshing, so let's remove that. Okay, uh, that should be fine. Now let's discuss something about the link tag. So link tag we already used many times, and we have seen its syntax also, right? So link rel is equal to style sheet. Okay, so just I wanted to highlight it again. So earlier we have used, but since here we are discussing the structure, and we know that okay, there is some HTML, and inside HTML there is head, and then there is body. Our whole visible content is inside body. Inside head there are meta tags, there is HTML, there is link. So since we are discussing these things, the whole structure in detail here, that's why I am revisiting that whole thing which we already discussed about link. Essentially that it establishes simply the relationship of the current document with the external resource. So if the external resource is, let's say, some CSS file, then what is the relationship? Style sheet. So style sheet, this thing is style sheet of our page, right? And I said that for style sheet you can skip this thing, without this also it works fine. This thing is called meme type, right? So I think this also we discussed earlier, but it is something like, if you type, then you will see that meme types are a standard specification where they try to show the type of the file by giving something like that type slash subtype. Okay, so it will be like text slash plain, text slash css, understand? And similarly, like for images, it will be image like jpeg, image like png. So image slash png means it is a image of type png, it is an image of type jpg. Okay, so in a similar manner, it is text, plain text, slash it is of type css. That is fine. So this is not needed, but because we are already saying that there is a style sheet, so this, even if you remove it, works fine. And this thing is regarding that thing, that okay, here this some icon is coming. This icon, if you want, then inside head you can put your favicon here inside head, right? And something like this rel icon href is equal to favicon.ico. This is a .ico, this is an icon file, and if you put it like there, then that icon will be visible. Okay. In slightly more detail, rel attribute stands for relationship, and its value denotes how the item being linked is related to the containing HTML document, as we discussed. href is actually the path of the actual resource. It can be local also, it can be remote also. In local, it can be relative path also or absolute path also, right? Okay. So we are trying to provide the full or relative, whatever. We are trying to provide the external resource path, as simple as that. And type is optional, it is basically meme type we discussed. Okay. Now there is something called HTML entities. So entities are basically some codes which are used for representing some special characters in HTML. So what happens is that, and right now we saw, right, that let's say NBSP. So all the codes, you see the common phenomena, right? Everything is starting from ampersand, that is the first thing, and everything is ending with semicolon. That is the second thing you have to observe, right? And in between, that is the code that you have to remember. Like all are like normal only. You see that whatever this, like for example, if this thing you will write, this thing you will write, then uh, uh, that thing will be drawn in the HTML. So we can try that, but before that, let me show you simple thing which we saw just now. That I told you that whenever you put any spaces and all, definitely this is not going to take, whatever spaces you do, this is not going to uh, everything will be reduced by one space in HTML, right? So how to put two spaces? So for putting two spaces, you can simply add, so one space it will take anyways. You know that if you put one space, at least one it will takes. So if it takes one, then after that I can take something like ampersand NBSP, right? So second space I can give it like this, and then I can see that now the gap is slightly more. Or I could have done like the both spaces I could have given using ampersand NBSP on. This also I could have done, right? But the earlier one was slightly, and it is same only, right? Earlier was slightly more clearer, anyways. But you understand, there is no dearth that how much, how many times we can do. We can do like as many times, and these are non-breakable. These are non-collapsible, which means that they will keep on whatever space you give, it will provide. And if you are providing more than 2 3, then obviously there is no point in doing something like this. You can simply have a span with display inline block and give it width of, let's say, 10 pixel or 20 pixel and understand. However, for a couple of spaces here and there, and you want to shift a few pixels here and there, this will be very much handy. Now let's come to this thing, ampersand. So this thing is a very common mistake. Let's say somebody, instead of hello world, it is trying to show hello and world. Okay, now you see that if you refresh, then this thing is visible, right? However, this is actually invalid. This thing is invalid. Why? Because some parsers will not properly understand it, because you see that ampersand has a special meaning, right? So what is more recommended, actually this will be visible in many browsers, but what is more recommended, that when actually you want to render, you want to show ampersand in HTML, then here in HTML code side, you write something like amp semicolon, like ampersand amp slash, this is HTML entity code of ampersand. Okay, if you save this and refresh, then you see that still it is ampersand, and this is like more valid. This will like work perfectly at every place. So if just remember this rule of thumb, that when this character is directly, so when this character is available somewhere else because of some other reasons, you understand. So in HTML code, so there can be many reasons. Let's say some code has come, so that ampersand is used for that, that is fine. But if here you are using something, then generally you should use a proper code, and it should be rendered like a normal ampersand in the browser. And then you can see that similar, like there are all these, and there are like many more, right? Like think 10 20 50, I think 20 25 more can be there. So no need to remember everything, but we have to understand that whatever is most common, that we should be able to see. So for example, let's say we are trying to do a right arrow or copy. So if we are having something like RARR, then it is right arrow, and if we are having LLARR, this is left arrow. So these things are plain and simple. And then we have something like copy, so it will give a copyright notice, something like this. Now you might think that, okay, I can simply have this, so somewhere from internet, let's say I have copied that thing, and instead of writing this, can't I simply write directly this? So this is fine, right? This will also work, but again the problem is that now you are depending, like emoji, now you are depending on some character which is not purely ASCII character. So it should work in most of the cases, and if you are doing something like that, then definitely try to keep this UTF-8. But if you are on the mercy of browsers, and then also you are then you should not use something like this. And a better way to use is these HTML entity codes. And for registration trade, so you understood that essentially what are HTML entities. You can use this to render specific things on the browser. Now one thing I wanted to show you, that HTML elements, they have some they can have some metadata. So for example, HTML elements, you can put attributes with data hyphen prefix, which means that uh, let's say I have a div. In that, if I put something like this, that data hyphen my info 1 is equal to this thing, then what is happening is that a new, so actually this was not allowed earlier, and many times, like developers wanted to attach some data, like they need to store some state information or something in any element, and then there was no way. And there were some hacky ways. So right now with HTML5, a proper metadata storage mechanism has come, that you just put data hyphen, and after that whatever name you want, you can use. And is equal to whatever value you want to give, and one element can have multiple such. So you can have data hyphen my info 1, data hyphen my info 2, multiple such unlimited number of properties you can use, and then that will be used as the data store. Right now, later what will happen, is that if somebody, if they are trying to see that, okay, I have two divs, but I want to see that which div is rendered from here, which div is coming from that database side, something. So you can have attach this sort of information, that while you are reading that div, then you can see that, okay, this div is coming from there and this div is coming from there. So that information you can directly attach. So these are the benefits of using this. We will see that later sometime. Okay, so right now this thing is done. There are few more, as I said, that img tags and input tags, like they will take some more time, so that I will discuss in a separate video. For this video it should be fine. I'll see you in the next one.